You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Inside the Fox 59 CBS 4 podcast studio, welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. Alongside Mike Chappell and Matt Adams, I'm Dave Griffiths. Tons to talk about this week. The Colts are playing their final opponent of the AFC South. Already tasted the Jaguars, already tasted the Texans. They get the Titans this weekend. So early in the season to face them all. But hey, that's sometimes the way the schedule
That's how it was last year, too.
Yes, it was. Had a lot of those teams early in the year. But somehow, playing one of your maybe main division rival of the past decade is not our lead this week. And unsurprisingly, we're going to dive right into the fact that Jonathan Taylor has spoken to the media.
Proof of life.
Proof of life, as Chap has said, for the first time since mandatory minicamp back in June, where he was a relatively docile, but at the same time, that was when everything was going down with running backs with Josh Jacobs, with Saquon Barkley. So the last time we heard from Taylor, there was some more generic talk about just the status of running backs in the league. And then after that, when everybody broke and was gone, and then it was a time for training camp, that's when everything hit the fan with Taylor and the Colts, with asks to be traded, with demands
Shortly
to be traded.
after he talked to us,
right,
he had to have been told that there would be no extension coming. That was a flashpoint.
That was the impetus.
Correct.
For everything that happened in the last couple months since. That Colts told Jonathan Taylor, you are not getting a contract extension. As Chris Ballard has told us, we were 4-13 or whatever it was, 5-13 or 4. The stupid 17. Yeah, the stupid 17 game schedule is
new coaching staff
and a new coaching staff. Yes, all those things that we'll get into over the next hour or so, along with a little bit on the Titans. But we have to start with what Jonathan Taylor said this Thursday.
Didn't say.
Exactly, and that was going to be the next point there. There wasn't a whole lot, Chap, that you feel was added to the discussion as Jonathan Taylor did speak for 11 minutes, but said, unveiled very little.
Somebody said it was an amazing 11 minutes of dodgeball, because he was in for fans. Please, he was asked the hard questions. He was over and over again. And he simply didn't answer him.
You can't just yell at him, where were you the last few months? Like
right.
But you can say it in different ways. And like you said, he was asked in different ways. So we'll start with that. The notion that the questions weren't asked is ludicrous, but the answers just were not answers.
Well, the first one was how James Boyd asked him, how badly you want to be here after all that's going on. He said, my number one goal was to get healthy. But that wasn't the question.
It's in fact not the question.
Right.
It's very much not the question.
And there were 4 or 5 times. No, more than that. Bob Kravitz asked, do you still want to trade? Do you still want an extension? My number one goal is to get healthy. It was like watching a presidential debate where they ask a question and they don't even, first they didn't hear you or whatever, but it could have gone worse. It could have gone better. It could have gone worse, but he needed, from a media standpoint and from his standpoint, we didn't create this. This was created by Jonathan Taylor and the team. We were just there reporting on it. Is after all this has gone on, I just think the best course would have been to, at least as superficially as he could, to explain his stance. Why not come out and say, I did what I did. I believed in my cause, how you want to. I think I'm underpaid. I've outplayed my contract, and that's how I still stand. Well, that didn't happen, so here I am. And he didn't. He didn't say any of that. So those questions are still out there. The team's not going to answer them. The team's. The next time we talk to Chris Ballard, I don't think we're going to get much further. This was a chance for Jonathan Taylor to sort of fill in the blanks, because since June, we've not heard from him except a couple of shots on Twitter. And in the absence of information, you speculate. You read body language, for crying out loud, that he's wearing a hoodie and he's scowling at a practice. Well, come on. But that's what we're left for. So I thought this was really a major missed opportunity to tell his side, explain it. And I realized if he had explained much, it would have gone on, and we would have wanted more and more. But I still think he owed, I don't know what the phrase is, he should have given more insight to how this last 4 or 5 months has spiraled out of control.
And I agree with you for the time being that until we see Jonathan Taylor on the field, just a few morsels of information could have been good for him right now. Matt, I'll pivot to the fact that if he comes out whenever his first game is, this weekend, next weekend, runs for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, that's going to be the story moving forward. It's not going to be as much about what has happened over the past 3-4 months. Taylor now kind of has the ball in his court, and although I agree with Chap that I think that some clarification of his side of the story would have been beneficial to him for the time being, in the long term, the more productive he is on the field, the less all that will matter for Colts fans out there who are watching him.
Well, and that's kind of been, I mean, we've talked about a little bit on the podcast, but I think the most beneficial thing for Taylor this whole time has been to get out on the field, and show that either A, he has value to the Colts still, or that B, he has value to other teams that might, the Colts may not get the trade value that they want for him, but they might get more than, say, a 5th-round pick or something for him if teams see that this guy is engaged and healthy and able to play. And really, up until we see that, and it might be this weekend, and let me tell you, I hope it is this weekend because I don't want to have to talk about this stuff anymore as far as like his health and whether he can play or whatever. I think, if he's able to play even in a limited capacity, that will really help ease some of this stuff.
You had a great stat, Chap, that Matt included here on our rundown for the show, is that without Taylor, the Colts average about 110 yards per game, about 4.1 yards per carry. But with him, they've averaged 132 rushing yards per game, about 4.6 yards per carry. So there's no doubt that when he's in the lineup, he makes an impact. And it'd be nice to have another nice impactful player there on the offense.
I put that out there because, well, it's a good stat. But then, too, you hear people say, well, Zach Moss. And I remember in preseason, Deion Jackson. No. It's this guy is a top 3 running back in the league. If you want to argue top 5, fine. He's a difference maker. We've chronicled, when I look back, I looked at the numbers again just to refresh my memory, but 18% of his carries, 18% have gone for 10 yards or more. That's ridiculous. And that's how this league is this nowadays. It's chunk plays. That's what he brings. And someone did ask him, does he need to prove himself or whatever, reprove? And the proof is he healthy? And the only way you can prove that is by playing. Is it this week? Maybe. I don't know. Running backs, you can get running backs incorporated real quick. Mm-hmm. And he was here during the offseason. He was here during training camp, at least for study. And, they pound on us the importance of mental reps. So here we go. It's going to be football conditioning. I remember we talked to Zach Moss going into the opener, which he didn't play. Remember, he had the broken forearm.
Right.
And somebody mentioned, well, I think it was Joel, mentioned, well, at least it wasn't a hamstring. You could keep your conditioning up. And Zach Moss said, it's amazing how quickly you lose football conditioning when you don't play. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be the thing, is how does he look in practice? Is he able to handle that? You never like to see the guy's first contact be in a game. Fumbles and all that things, but I think he's done it well long enough, and as Matt mentioned, it's probably going to be it would certainly be a limited role. Mm-hmm. 10 touches. I don't know if that's too many. I don't know.
It might be. Yeah.
But you need to get him out there, but the only thing, again, fans will be extremely forgiving if he's productive. That's simply how it is. But I do think that we're going to be parceling out his game and his body language moving forward, because, again, the quote that stood out, he said it a couple of times, well, right now I'm here. Well, right now we're all here. Right now I'm here. So, that's not an answer. So many things float in your mind, and when you get right down to it, in my mind, he's here because he's out of options. He played everything and he did everything he could, and he's here. But going forward, again, let's say he just knocks it out of the park over the next couple of months. Well, then the question is, do the Colts see his value to where they give him whatever extension, or which really grates at Taylor, there's 2 franchise tags. And if I'm the team, isn't that what you do?
The first one makes a whole lot of sense.
Sure does.
It really does. The second one's the one that I think you can debate a little bit more because just the price goes up a little bit more. But at the same time, you have the cap space right now. You got
the rookie you got the quarterback
exactly.
on a rookie contract.
Exactly.
But the franchise tag I think this year is $10.3 million, I think, and it'll go. And then he'll get 120% of that, which is $12 million. So in any long-term deal that you do, long-term is a relative term, it's going to be 3 years, and the guaranteed money is going to be the 2 franchise tags, which we talked about back in the offseason.
Right.
And I've still said, I don't care what the running back market is. I don't. It's got to be for each team. The running back market shouldn't matter to the New York Giants because of the value of Saquon Barkley to them. It's the same here. Jonathan Taylor's value to this team far exceeds what the overall running back market is. But it's going to be real interesting to see how he does. If he, let's say he runs out of bounds at the end of a play, well, could you get more yards or is it a business decision? And those are simply going to be questions they're going to be asked. I hope he has an uneventful, yet eventful, next 2.5 months or whatever. This team needs him. He is that quality of a player. But until we get other answers, the questions are still going to be there.
He could help tremendously. There's no doubt. And for a team that has not been incredibly dynamic so far, he is a dynamic player.
There's been explosive plays, maybe a half a dozen,
right?
But not consistently. And part of that's been they've eased Richardson in the first couple games,
right? And then he was out for one.
And
game.
then he was out. But we sort of saw what they could do in the passing game last week. What Taylor and he can do in the run game, it just boggles the mind.
Mm-hmm, definitely. If there was, let's play the imagination game, Chap. If there was one question from Jonathan Taylor that you wish you could get a real direct answer for, there were so many questions that were thrown to him. What's the one thing you really want the direct, the honest truth from him that you figure you're not going to get because you've been in this for a long time. You know the drill. But if there was one question you could ask and he had to answer you truthfully, what would you ask him?
Do you really want to be here? And the next question will be, what's it been, 8 months to recover from an ankle surgery that is supposed to be 4 to 5 weeks? Those two. And he was asked, again, Bob Kravitz, do you still want an extension? Do you still want to trade? Well, if you get the extension, you don't want to trade.
Right.
But it was sort of what's your mindset. But how, and I sort of asked about how committed are you to this team? Mm-hmm. And he sort of said, if I wasn't committed, I wouldn't be here. Well, that's kind of like what was a Marshawn Lynch quote? I'm here so I don't get fined. I'm here so I don't get fined.
Yep. Yeah.
So I realize he's in an awkward position, but he put himself in this position. I just thought he could have handled it better by giving us more than he gave us because he didn't give us a heck of a lot.
Right. And when you go back and you look at what Chris Ballard gave us a couple weeks ago, like he gave us some things to talk about for sure in this whole saga with Taylor. He's saying, it sucks. This sucks. Everything sucks. It sucks for the Colts.
I'm not going to paint a rosy picture because it's not.
Yeah. And if Taylor could come out and say something similar to that, like this whole situation has sucked. And he could say exactly what Chris said, but he could say, but now I'm here. And things are different now.
Right.
And
again, I did what I did because I believed in it. Mm-hmm. But here I am now, so let's move forward.
It sucks for running backs in the NFL right now.
And
but here I am. Let's go. Like I'm here with the guys in the locker room. They've welcomed me. I love playing in front of the fans. I want my name and likeness on the side of Lucas Oil Stadium, whatever. Like it's just so easy. It's so easy to say something that is very bare bones acceptable, and you didn't get a whole lot of that. So it makes you very easily, Matt, think that Taylor is like, because he doesn't say those things, that he's really swinging on the other side of this argument. That to Chap's point, the one question you want to ask, do you want to be here? It makes everyone think that the logical answer to that question is no right now. It's just that he has to be here.
It's like I have to be here.
Exactly.
Where else should I be? Could I be?
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't agree to the physical, if he argues with the fact that he shouldn't pass the physical, then things really get nasty.
Right.
Then you're talking suspensions and all that stuff.
inquiries from the league, from the MFLPA.
Right. So, like I said, I guess in one area I commend him because he exhausted his options. He tried everything possible, and this is his only option. This is his only viable option. The other option is to not play, and that's not really an option.
Right. Matt, do you think that Jonathan Taylor plays for the Colts this weekend against the Titans?
I'm going to say yes. I think in a very limited capacity. Mostly, Steichen sort of implied that he's been engaged with and knows the lingo and knows the offense. And I don't think it's going to be a 30 carry type of thing or anything remotely.
Boy, that'd be a punishment, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it? Oh my
Welcome
word!
back.
Yeah, welcome back. Maybe less than 10 plays, some situational things. Maybe they try to hit a big chunk play with him, something like that.
It's what it does. It makes the Titans prepare for him.
Yep. Yeah, it
does.
does.
I thought I saw a quote from Nashville that one of the players said, "Well, if he's practicing, he's playing."
Yeah.
So it's to me, it would be totally out of character to play a guy after 2 full practices. Mm-hmm. Didn't Trey Sermon?
Exactly. And I wanted to bring up Trey Sermon.
He practiced maybe twice.
Right.
No,
but he was on the Eagles practice squad, and he was playing football.
Right. And that's different.
It is different.
So we'll see. A lot of times you see a guy who hasn't been on the field, and he plays, and all of a sudden you got a hammy or something that bothers you. So if they play him, it will be limited. My curiosity wonders is when he first trots on the field, what will the response be? Mixed? But more boos than cheers from the fans?
I think that's interesting, and I don't think so here in Indianapolis.
You think it's you've kissed and made up?
I think that there are some cheers to welcome him back. I really do. I think there are maybe a smattering of boos, but I think the cheers outweigh them quite significantly. That's my feeling.
People who aren't in the media are generally forgiving.
Yes. If this was Philadelphia, this would be different.
Oh, no question. We'd find snowballs.
I know.
Exactly. With no snow outside.
Here in October, it's been 80 degrees for like the first 5 days of October. We'd find them somewhere, dadgummit. But yeah.
I hope he comes out and plays well. I hope he does things the right way because it's there for him. It just is. Whether it works out here, if he comes in and averages 85 yards a game, 90 yards a game, and 5 yards a carry, he will get money somewhere, even if it's here with a guaranteed $10+ million. No, it's not what he wants, but it's still decent. It's still decent. It's a decent option, but that's on him. Mm-hmm. Now, if he comes out and doesn't play well and he doesn't run with authority that he always does, then that's simply hurting his career. He's not that kind of a player.
Sandbagging is not it's not an option. Like it really isn't. First,
that's not him, and then it's not an option for your career.
Like your point of if he steps out of bounds, that's different than not running at 80%. You know that you're not going to go out there as an NFL player and play at 80% because you're going to get hurt. It's not a physical game; it's a violent game. If you give 80%, you are in serious trouble.
And another reason is guys in the locker room see it.
Yes.
And once you lose, and he hasn't, but if you lose the respect of your teammates, you are gone.
That's a good point. The respect of his teammates, because everyone that I've talked to or heard from this week in the locker room has been effusive of their praise for Jonathan Taylor. They're glad to have him back.
Which was to be expected.
Exactly.
But most of the time it felt honest.
It did.
Zaire Franklin, totally honest.
Mm-hmm. Jersey boy is what Zaire said.
I tell you,
off the top.
If I could spend 20 minutes every Wednesday at his locker, and I would be smarter. Mm-hmm. He gets it. I remember back in
those Philly and Syracuse guys. Let me tell you.
This is East Coast, but in the Manning years, we had Gary Brackett, middle linebacker. Rutgers. And I'm telling you, every Monday we walked in there, win or lose, of course they won a lot, he would walk in front of his locker and say, okay, what you guys got? Because that's what the leaders, that's what the middle linebacker, and that's what that defensive captain does. And Zaire Franklin, not only he's comfortable with it, he understands his role, and he gives you time, and he gives you honest answers. I really like, when the time comes, we need to have a vote that these are the kind of players they re-sign. I don't care if they can still not play or not.
Right.
But he has so much value in the locker room.
This Jonathan Taylor thing is just beginning. From his perspective, I think Taylor wants to be on the field, Matt, as soon as possible because the trade deadline is October 31st.
It's getting near.
And And from what we have kind of discussed already, the implication of not answering questions about whether you want to be here leaves the thought that you don't want to be here. And the easiest, quickest way to get out is October 31st. You have to prove to the rest of the NFL that you have great value to their team by October 31st.
Is that 3 games? What is it, 4 games?
You look that up right now, or both of you look that up right now, because, and I think that is it likely that happens? I would say at this moment, no, but things in the NFL change like that. If there's one contender out there that decides over the next month that they are a running back away from winning a championship, then they'll trade for Jonathan Taylor this year. And they might not give up a first-round pick without signing him long-term, but if the Colts get something that is decent value and they realize that this relationship is fractured beyond repair, then it would be wise of them to make that realization and move on, even if it's not the ultimate prize that they wanted for a player that they know is truly valuable, Mike, to their team.
And it's 4 more games.
4 games.
So they've got Tennessee at Jacksonville versus Cleveland versus New Orleans. That game's on the 29th. So that's 2 days before the deadline.
There you go.
I was told by someone inside the building that what would have worked, what the best option for Taylor, this is back off season or preseason wise, is to come out, pass your physical, and play week 1, knowing how much you want to trade or an extension, whatever, and just really show people that you're that 2021 player again, 1,800 yards and all 18 touchdowns and all that, and then you've got trade value, and then your market really is there. But now it's shorter. It's 4 games, and in 4 games it'll probably be like 3 games because you're not gonna see that much, I don't think, this week. But he has time, if that's his wish, to go out there and just show people that I'm me.
Right.
I can still do it. And there are teams. I keep looking at Baltimore. My goodness, can you imagine
with him and Lamar Jackson?
Kind of like with Taylor and Richardson.
Right.
And now the other thing is, let's say this team, after stumbling at home last week, a game they could have, should have won. What if this team wins a couple games in a row? All of a sudden, this isn't a rebuild that you anticipated. Yeah. This is, hey, the division isn't what we thought it might be, and who knows what we might do. Maybe you're more apt to hang on to him, unless somebody just blows you out of the water with compensation. I don't know what that would take. They're not going to get a 1. That's not going to happen. But in the next 3 or 4 games, he has a chance to certainly increase his value for a possible trade.
Yeah, I keep coming back to Baltimore too. Like when you look at all the teams in the NFL, I mean, you're thinking about Miami originally, and like they already have right now like 2 of the top 5.
They scored 70
fantasy.
for crying out loud.
Yeah, they don't need Jonathan Taylor. Mike McDaniel is good enough with Raheem Mostert and the rookie they have there.
They would have scored 94 with Taylor.
There you go.
Yeah, to do some real damage. They don't need to give up a 1 or a 2 or whatever. That is not worthwhile for them. But Baltimore is a team. When the Colts saw them and beat them, they had a patchwork offensive line. That was nowhere near the best that offensive line can be in Baltimore. When that improves and you have Lamar Jackson and you have Jonathan Taylor there, like that makes that team dangerous. And now, with how the Bengals have struggled to start the year, that division is wide open. They have the opportunity to win that division very easily right now. There is no one who's running away with it. The Steelers just got beat last week. Got housed. Exactly. The Browns have been up and down. The Browns have looked okay, but no one is taking that division by storm.
They lost their feature back.
Exactly.
I can't imagine them going after a Taylor now with
I don't think so.
Kareem Hunt. But,
no, they already got they got their guy who had been there for a long time.
But there will be a team that might say, but first show us, and that's why.
Yes. And maybe that's why Taylor was so focused during this press conference about I need to show that I'm healthy.
Probably.
Because he knows that that's the most important thing for his trade value right now.
Because we talked that the strangest dynamic was you've got a player who said he wasn't healthy, yet he wants top market contracts. Those don't go together.
Right. Good point. Period. End of thought. Yeah. End of sentence.
So we'll see. Again, it's just amazing how this thing has gone from back in, when was it, was at the end of the season or in April when he said, "Hey, I signed my contract. I put 4 years pen to paper," and then at the end of OTAs it was, well, not so much. And then he changed his agents and all that to request an extension, to getting a trade request, to here we are. The ball is simply in his court. We've beaten that to death, and it's going to be very interesting how he handles it.
It's a tangled web that has been woven between Jonathan Taylor and the Colts, and we've discussed this all offseason and focused on it.
We've discussed this way too much because
and
you have to.
And both sides could have handled it much
better.
Both
and
sides.
That's what we've said.
Both
sides could have been better. I understand the arguments from both sides. I empathize in some aspect for both sides, and I think that's part of the job of being in the media is you have to get to the crux of the argument or the crux of the problem. And it's obvious in this situation that there are just two sides that are very much dug in, that have good arguments to support why they are doing what they do. Which is why it's hard to resolve it. Which is why it's hard to resolve. And so the relationship, I think the one part of this that is the nasty part has been kind of the fractured relationship between Jonathan Taylor and Jim Irsay, Chris Ballard, front office, and all that, and how it kind of spilled over into the public eye. That there were things said by both sides, I think, that they should regret right now. You try to keep things professional and in-house, and that just was not the case because this is a tense situation. It's about a guy who's fighting for every last dollar that he feels he is worth, and a team that is trying to build toward a championship future. And there are hundreds and millions of dollars on the line on the other side too. So I get the tension, I get the trouble between the two. But if there's one thing that could have been different, it would be that part, is that the relationships have been seemingly, I don't know if broken's the right word, because Chris Ballard said relationships are mendable, acknowledging that the relationship is in trouble between Jonathan Taylor and the Colts a couple months ago. So I think over the next month, we'll see exactly how mendable this relationship is, or even the rest of this year, and then we'll get to what's it called. Franchise tags and whatever down the road, if indeed that's the route that the Colts go in the future. So
I think one thing that's sort of important, although it's been a wasted month talent-wise, is that this month or so has allowed there to be a cooling off period to where things weren't said, and maybe there were some things done and said behind the scenes. I don't know. It was still strange that he worked out at the complex and then was not there.
Right.
He wasn't on the sidelines of the games. That, to me, that says something. It just does. But maybe this can be repaired, and I'll quit thinking of references of War of the Roses with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner dying on a chandelier. But hey, you hope if it works out.
Spoiler alert. No,
I know if it works out, it's win-win for both.
See that movie tonight, but yeah, you're right. Win for both. Well, everyone's rooting for a win for both right now. At least all Colts fans
Stay off the chandelier, guys.
Exactly. Win for both. Let's get to the game this week, as the Colts will host the Titans at Lucas Oil Stadium. The Colts had an overtime loss to the Rams last week. The Titans last week just destroyed the Bengals. Part of my point that the AFC North is wide open. The Bengals are in a hot pile of you-know-what right now. Both the Colts and the Titans are 2-2. In fact, all AFC South teams are 2-2.
Tied for first.
So the Colts are number one still.
And that's the thing that's really interesting to me with the Taylor situation and what they end up doing, because like you guys said, if the Colts rattle off a couple of wins here in the next few games, the division is going to be there because there's no dominant team right there, which means if you just continue to stay the course, you might have a shot.
And here's the point with this. Like right now, I know that if fans are out there thinking that, they should just tank and get this best draft pick as possible because they're not a Super Bowl team this year. And I agree, they're not a Super Bowl team this year. But based on the schedule they have, which is not a tough schedule, and the division that looks right now like it's not quite as tough as you thought it was going to be, there are going to be more wins for your team, I think, than you thought. If you were on the Colts over, whatever the number was, 6.5 before this year,
I'm feeling pretty
good.
A
lot better right now than you did at the start of the season. And so if you're Chris Ballard or if you're Shane Steichen or anyone in that building, like being, as we've said before, being mediocre is the worst in the NFL. Like being 7-9, being 8-8
Draft-wise,
is
it is
awful.
awful.
Like you don't get the game-changing player, but you don't get the playoffs either. And you'd much rather push for the playoffs when you're 8-8 than you would try to lose one or two more games and be 7-9 or 6-10 instead. So I wanted to say that because that seems to be the trajectory this team is on right now, because they've been better than thought, and they have been in every game. You can make an argument they should have won the 2 games that they lost, but
I'd like to have seen them play with Moss against Jacksonville.
Exactly,
I really would.
Very much so. Would have been interesting. But all that to say, the immediate future is the Tennessee Titans, who are feeling really good about themselves right now after feeling really bad about themselves the week before.
It's a week-to-week league, baby.
Exactly. I mean, they win 27-3 against the Bengals. They lose the week before 27-3 to the Browns. And let's see, that Matt's finished.
Yeah, they're out of order there. Week 2,
you son of a
Chargers. They won in overtime, 27-24, and then they lost to the Saints in Week 1, 16-15.
So there are 2 really close games. Then there were really 2 really big blowouts. And if we want to evaluate the Titans, I think it's difficult to do so because it's been so up and down over the first month of the season. And like we said last week, you kind of evaluate after quarters. You take the first quarter. If you're the Colts, I kind of gave you my quick evaluation of the Colts for this first quarter. What I thought.
It's a thumbs up.
They're better than you thought they were, and with the way their schedule is and the way the division is, like you push right now. You try to push now that Jonathan Taylor's back. You go. Well, how about you guys? Anything to add for the Colts in the first quarter?
If somebody told you 2-2, now the thing that's disappointing is they've lost 7 straight at home.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
That's painful. It's been almost a full calendar year.
It's been Jacksonville, October, whatever. Yeah, almost a full calendar year. And what is it, 3 of the next 4 at home? So in the next loss at home, if it's Tennessee, you've tied the franchise record of 8. And, the normal game plan is, hey, if you go 6-2 at home, you got a really good chance to do something. Well, if you go 500 at home, it's really hard because it's hard to win on the road, although they've won 2 on the road. But this is when if you're going to do anything, this is when you do it. The schedule is relatively easier, and they're home. And they had a good chance to win last week. You get the ball back tied with whatever it was, minute and a half to go.
It was like a minute 32, something like that.
Yep.
And in decent field position, was it the 35, whatever it was?
Yep.
And you just didn't do it.
You have to go 35 yards to get in field goal range.
35 yards. Correct. With that kicker. So, but I think they're in really good shape to do something. Now it's on them to do that something.
Just to go back to last week's game, I heard a lot of people saying, oh, it's too bad that the Rams won the coin toss. I really would like to have seen Richardson have one more chance at the ball. And I'm thinking they had the chance there with, a little bit over a minute left. Right. And they had the ball with the ability to go down and get that go-ahead score, and they didn't do anything with it.
It was even a better scenario, really, than you would if you got it in overtime.
Because
a field goal wins.
Right.
Yeah. And you probably have better field position.
And
anyway.
It was a couple of incompletions to Pittman. I think they tried to hit him, and then it was that sideline pass to Granson. It was a comeback route.
I still can't tell if the DB got his hand on it or not.
It was hard to. It was hard to tell. It was a tough catch either way. But man, if he gets that, completely different ball game.
Titans this week. Offense for Tennessee. Ryan Tannehill, 5th season with the team. And as Matt points out, it sure feels like longer sometimes when those guys, well, especially, I think it feels like it's longer just because the Colts have had a different quarterback every year.
Yeah, and they play him twice a year, so we feel like we've seen a lot of Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, exactly. So, and before that, you love playing the Titans because Marcus Mariota always played his worst against the Colts. Like, he played better against other teams, but the Colts never seemingly got anything
because they always
good.
got the best of Blake Bortles.
Exactly. They got the best of Blake Bortles and the worst of Marcus Mariota. But this year, Tannehill is anything but impressive so far. 67 of 108, 788 yards in 4 games. So he's averaging less than 200 yards per game. 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's been sacked 16 times. The offensive line has not been very impressive for Tennessee either. Derrick Henry only averaging 3.9 yards per carry, which for Derrick Henry standards is awful. We'll be honest. 2 touchdowns on the season. Also has a passing touchdown, which he has seemingly every year. Gets one of those plays right around the goal line. They did find a little bit of a rhythm last week, doing exactly what they wanted to do. Control the football, smothering defense. And I think Joe Burrow's limitations limited them in that aspect. Tennessee had given up some big plays the first couple weeks of the season that really got them in trouble on the defensive end. And hey, if you can limit Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to no big plays, really, even with a limited Joe Burrow, that's a legitimate step forward for that side of the ball, which you look at the players who are their big-time players. Danico Autry, there's that name again, 4 sacks to lead the team.
Like to have re-signed him.
You would love to have Danico on this squad for sure. Jeffrey Simmons at defensive tackle has 2.5 sacks. Linebacker Arden Key has 2.5 sacks as well. Safety Kevin Byard always has a big play against the Colts. It seems like an important game-changing play whenever he's playing. But they have a couple other players who've played well on that side of the ball. But there's kind of the very quick Cliff's Notes version of the Titans who are in the same scenario, well, the same record as the Colts at 2-2, and they're hoping that they're kind of able to build on some of the momentum they just got last week with that dominant showing over the Bengals and say, hey, this is what we can be. We can be this grinded out, grind you to a pulp type of team. That's exactly what Mike Vrabel you would think of when you think of a Mike Vrabel-led team.
In an NFL that really doesn't work anymore.
Right. It's not as common.
Right.
And so, but Mike Vrabel is keeping it there as long as he's there, and I think D'Amico Ryans is halfway to doing that in Houston as well. Although I think their quarterback's a little bit better than the quarterback in Tennessee right now, at least for the long term as we talk about it. But yeah, and I think just before we even get into kind of stats and all that, like Ryan Tannehill has not had a great year. But he has an opportunity to have a great game, I think, against the Colts because Dallas Flowers is now done. And your number one outside cornerback is Juju Brents, who has 2 games of NFL experience.
It might be Kenny Moore.
Exactly. He could be.
And he's your nickel.
And Kenny's a great nickel corner.
Yes.
Great nickel corner. Outside.
When they're in base, he will be outside with Juju.
Yes, as he has been, I think, in 2 cornerback sets, to be fair to him. So yeah, Juju was not. He didn't start in Baltimore. He came in a couple plays later.
So it's going to be Darrell Baker Jr., who they
benched.
Who they
benched.
I was going to say it nicer, but not. But you're right.
They benched.
He was a healthy scratch after starting 2 games,
and then was scratched for 2 games.
Yes,
was benched.
Or Jalen Jones, who I think has played 7 defensive snaps.
Yeah, not a lot.
And 6 of them were in overtime when Flowers went down.
Yeah.
And Tony Brown. Mm-hmm. And they'll bring up one of the guys from the practice squad. Does it Darren Hall, who they re-signed,
right?
And Chris Lamons.
Yep. Is he eligible to play now?
Yeah.
Okay.
3 games. He served his 3 games. And they released him. Then they signed him to the practice squad.
Right.
And he's primarily a special teams player.
Right.
So it's not ideal. It just shows you. Sometimes the media, we know what we're doing. We harped on the lack of, I'm not saying depth because everybody's got depth, but proven experience at cornerback and the offensive line all off season. Mm-hmm. We did in preseason, and here we are. You know, they lose that, and Dallas Flowers played well. But that shouldn't be a critical loss to your defense.
He had a pretty good game against the Rams.
He did.
Yeah.
But he didn't play defense last year until December.
Right.
So, but good for and he was really playing well. He was growing into the position. But the fact that you're scrambling to replace Dallas Flowers, and then on the offensive line, you put Blake Freeland out there in his first game at left tackle, and he'll probably be out there again.
Yep.
And you just say, well, didn't you guys see what we saw to how you were so, inexperienced at those positions? And it's funny, we were talking about that maybe they of course they knew what they were doing, but they thought, well, this is going to be a rebuild, and boy, we're just going to have the growing pains, certainly at corner. And all of a sudden here you are, and maybe you're not rebuilding.
Yeah, your point about Blake Freeland is I think well met, and we saw last week that he had trouble at times, and especially if they put Aaron Donald outside on him,
which they did.
Why wouldn't you?
Exactly. That's nothing to be ashamed of.
No, of course not.
That you have trouble with Aaron Donald, but
that's a team failure.
Yes,
that's the team putting somebody in position to not succeed. It happened a couple of times. It happened with Bernie last year.
Yep, that
in
Denver game,
right?
In Denver. So, I don't really blame Blake Freeland, because we talked to Jim Bob Cooter. He said, well, he played admirable. He played hard. Well, doggone it, playing hard is part of the job description.
Right.
But it maybe after another week, and again, they didn't know that he was going to start until Friday.
Right.
Because remember, Ryman was okay in practice until he had concussion symptoms. So maybe with a week of preparation, things will be, in the fact that Aaron Donald's not going to play, will be better.
I think if that's the optimistic side, let me, of course, take the pessimistic side.
Because you always do.
Because I do. But like Donald was on the inside most of the time. Their outside edge rushers are not as dominant, I think, in L.A. Here with the Titans, their outside edge rushers are pretty good, and it starts with Danico Autry. He's not too bad right now. And on the other side, Arden Key as well has 2.5 sacks too, and he's had, I think, 8 to 10 sacks in the season in the past himself. So you got those two. Is Harold Landry playing for them right now?
I haven't paid attention.
I don't even know right now.
I've been more Taylor centric.
I wish I would know that.
Jeffrey
right now.
Simmons is a load too.
Simmons on the inside is dominant, always is. So I know Landry was hurt like basically all last year, Matt, and maybe he's just having a slower start to this season as he's getting reacquainted to life in the NFL. But if it's Harold, even if it's just Arden Key, but if it's Danico Autry and Harold Landry on the edges, like that's much more difficult than you got from the Rams too. So I'm saying, I'm taking the pessimistic view here for Blake Freeland because you gave the other side of the ball. What's up, Matt?
Landry has played in their 4 games this year, but he's only had 8 tackles total.
Okay.
So kind of sounds to me maybe limited.
Right.
He does have a sack.
Not very impactful.
It's not perimeter, but these guys, I think there's another chance to get Ryan Kelly back. Mm-hmm. He practiced again today. Of course, he practiced. Yes. Did he practice 3 days last week?
Yeah, he practiced full Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I thought.
I've
maybe
heard
just Wednesday, Thursday. Maybe Friday he was ruled out.
But I saw it was ruled he had a setback. Maybe, but it just could be that he didn't. If you don't pass your independent test, I don't know if that means you had a setback. It just means you weren't there yet. But he's had, this is 2 games he's had, and I keep harping on the fact that when he had the concussion back in whatever year it was, 17, he missed 5 games.
Right.
And it could have been more because it was the end of the season. But this offensive line needs their people because the backup guys just are not experienced.
Yeah. I really think this is a tough matchup for the Colts to face this Titans defensive line if they're at their best, and especially if you don't have Ryman in there, especially if you don't have Kelly in there too. That would be a significant challenge. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. But Titans on offense, 28th in the NFL in passing. Like I said, it has not been great on that side of the ball. Although Ryan Tannehill, I'm sure when he's looking across the field, is more optimistic about this matchup, these cornerbacks, than he is on most others, if not all others he has faced so far.
It's really the experienced quarterbacks that give you the most grief. Even though Tannehill's not the most talented QB out there, he's seen everything, and that's where this Colts secondary struggles.
And he's thrown to DeAndre Hopkins, too, who's not the DeAndre Hopkins chap of 4 years ago, who on this podcast you would have taken him above any other wide receiver in the league. But he's still a great route runner. He is still a savvy veteran. And we saw last week how savvy veteran Matthew Stafford was able to pick apart that Colts secondary, even with Dallas Flowers in there. We're talking about Dallas Flowers like he's the Pro Bowler.
That's what I mean.
With Dallas Flowers.
Yeah, that's where we are
exactly,
in the secondary.
Exactly. So if you have savvy veteran Ryan Tannehill and savvy veteran DeAndre Hopkins there, they could outsmart this young cornerback group. And Kenny Moore, obviously on the what's the word, exempt from whatever my ramblings here are. He's the guy that you can rely on back there. But
then he and Juju Brents have miscommunication on their winning touchdown.
Right. Just such a shame. That like looking back on that was rough. It was, because you could see what Kenny was trying to do. You can see that he was trying to do it late, like really late it seemed like. But like I don't know what they said to each other eventually when you're watching film the next day. Like, was it too late to pass off? Was that something that should have been communicated earlier? But like, I haven't had the chance to talk to them in the locker room about that. And really now we're kind of moving on.
You wish that both guys had jumped on Nakua.
Yeah,
right. Because go ahead and double cover the guy that has 8 catches.
If they leave the tight end open, he's going to get a first down, and then you reset.
Yeah. Oh, no. So, anyway. Back to the Titans as we get back from that little rabbit trail. The Titans are 15th in the NFL in rushing yards per game, right around the same spot as the Colts there, who are 14th. Defense, the Titans are in the top 10 in the league. They've allowed less than 18 points per game. Colts are allowing nearly 25 points per game. That's a bit of a swing right there here early in the season. Passing defense, it's the rushing defense that has carried the Titans. They're only allowing 2.9 yards per carry. Like I said, that defensive front
very good
is where they make their hay, only allowing 70 yards per game. The Colts, this number has jumped up in the past couple of weeks, are allowing 126.8 yards per game. And I thought that was one of the more disappointing points of the Rams game, Chap, is that when they needed yards, they got yards on the ground. And I think that
they doubled their output.
They did. Not having DeForest Buckner was a big detriment to the Colts' run defense. Like, we talk a lot about Grover Stewart and how good he is against the run, and that's true, but that's because DeForest Buckner often warrants the double team, and he's one-on-one and is very good in those one-on-one scenarios. So when you threw Buckner out, you saw that this Colts front definitely took a significant step back, because Kyren Williams is not Derrick Henry. He's not a guy who has years of success in the league, and that Rams offensive line is not, I don't know, the Browns or the Eagles offensive line that's viewed as one of the best in the league. It's viewed as okay, but for crying out loud, that run game, like I said, one of the more disappointing aspects I thought of last week's game that needs to change here against Derrick Henry and the Titans.
We talk about the injuries, and with Ryman and Flowers, you touched on DeForest Buckner. We'll see how he plays. He was on a pitch count, and I think it was at 20 plays, and they missed it. I like the depth of the defensive line. I really do. But when you take out one of the cornerstones, then all of a sudden that depth, then you're replacing Buckner with Taven Bryan or Eric Johnson or somebody, and really Tyquan Lewis. I like Tyquan Lewis, but that's why with Derrick Henry in town, I've got the stats. I should have brought him in. I've been Jonathan Taylor preoccupied. But
dadgummit, Chap.
Over the last 5 years, if the Colts, let's say the Colts have given up 10 100-yard rushing games, that's probably close. Like 7 of them have been Derrick Henry. It's just week after week after week he does that. And that allows Tannehill to kind of do what he needs to do whenever he needs to do it. And he always hurts him getting outside the pocket. So Buck is, when you talk about indispensable players, I still say Ryman is maybe
working his way up there to the Anthony Costanzo status that you always had for years.
To me, he's there on the offensive line.
Yeah.
The guy that's working his way up there now is Richardson, because he's good.
Yeah.
He's good. But DeForest Buckner is top 3 or 4 that it's so hard for them to play without. We saw that last week.
I saw a ludicrous. I hesitate even to mention this because Twitter is stupid, but I saw this ludicrous post that said, like, quietly, Anthony Richardson's the worst quarterback in the NFL. They gave one stat that he was bad at. They put him on a graph and with 2 different stats.
It's an efficiency stat, isn't it?
Yes, they put him on one graph with 2 stats. One stat was a little bit above average, and the other stat was bad. Like, yes, he has one bad stat. It was adjusted completion percentage. Congratulations. We knew that he has to work on completion percentage. Yes. But for, like, explosive plays, I think was the other one. In the passing game, he was, like, somewhere above. He was in plus territory. And to say that he's the worst quarterback in the NFL based on one stat is the dumbest thing that I've seen this week. And I see dumb things too often. And I just need to get that off my chest.
And it lacks context because, yes, his efficiency was not great against the Rams.
It's not going to be great.
It's not going to be great, but he was 11 for 25, I think, in that game. But if you looked at that second half and that fourth quarter about what that kid did, that is way different than, it was 44% completion percentage. I get that. I would love to have that a lot higher.
It needs to be higher.
It needs to be, but he made the plays when they needed to make the plays. There is a big difference there. You've got to contextualize these things.
You cannot judge him, gauge him, evaluate him on these new metrics.
And one stat.
Right. Because, again, he needs to be a 60% thrower. Will he ever be? Hopefully. But what he brings, there's still I'm pretty sure it's a small segment that believes that Minshew should be starting. And
it's definitely a small segment, but yes.
And they keep pointing to the Baltimore game, and it forces you to trash Minshew. They won because their kicker had the greatest game by a kicker in NFL history. 4 50-yard field goals.
Yes, arguably.
You know, and Pittman saves them with the jump ball catch and the recovery. Anthony Richardson is this team's future, and he's their present because of what he can do, and that's why we say and we've written about it and talked about it, is the possibilities with Taylor and Richardson and what they can do when they get on that RPO in the corner. It just forces defenses to choose, and if you choose wrong, you know with Zach Moss it may be a 7-yard gain. With Taylor, it's going to be 50 a chance. So Richardson's a guy, and it's crazy when you read those cherry-picked stats like that people simply, to me, have an agenda.
I think both Richardson and Stroud have been impressive. They have been what these teams want. Looking here in the division, like the Texans have gotten what they wanted from Stroud. For him to have 0 interceptions so far, and 6 touchdowns, averaging 300 yards passing per game. I saw a stat with him that's along with that type of stretch in NFL history. There are some good quarterbacks that he was listed alongside there. And the Colts have gotten what they wanted with Richardson so far, too, being a dynamic player, making plays with his feet and with his arm as well when he has been in the game. So.
And to Chap's point, if we're staring down 3 years of the Anthony Richardson era and we're still having sub 50% completion games, and everybody's going to have a stinker every once in a while, but if it's a consistent thing, then we have sort of failed this city in a way. But taking this out of context with this one game where they really got some big plays from the kid. Whatever.
The kid. No, he's 21.
He's the guy. 21, so yeah.
You know, like you said, Dave, it's a bit on the ridiculous side.
Roster notes: Titans offensive linemen Peter Skronsky and Nicholas Petit-Frere return on the offensive line. They are supposed to, so would be very happy to get both of those guys back. Petit-Frere had been suspended for violating the NFL's gambling policy. His 6-game suspension was
they reduced that, didn't they?
Because they reworked the gambling policy just last week, and part of that was reducing the suspensions of some of these guys that had been suspended. Wide receiver Kyle Phillips also practiced on Wednesday. He had been on IR in the preseason. The Colts, I tweeted out on Wednesday that it was the longest practice injury report that we had seen on the season so far, and it was. Mo Alley Cox out with an ankle, DeForest Buckner out with a groin, Shaq Leonard out with a groin, Tyquan Lewis out with a knee, Quentin Nelson out with a toe, Kwity Paye out, Bernard Ryman out, both of those two guys with concussions. Ryan Kelly, though, practiced on full. Jonathan Taylor back on a ankle. I love how it just said ankle for Jonathan Taylor. 10 months later, however the heck long it's been now. But anyway,
January 26th. I've written it so much. January 26th.
Thursday's practice report will be better because Chap, you were out there. You saw a couple of those players returning to the field. You said you saw Buckner out there.
Quentin was out there. Ryan Kelly was out there.
Ryan Kelly out there.
Brett, our video guy, saw Kwity Paye
out
on the
there
sideline. He's in concussion,
right.
so we'll see.
Could be limited Thursday, full Friday. That's at least a path forward. It is open.
And plus, yesterday's was a walkthrough as opposed to a practice.
Correct.
They almost use it as a day off, sort of. I mean, I don't want to downgrade walkthroughs, but as Steichen mentioned, they're coming off 2 overtime games,
and they're banged up,
and they're banged up. So it made a lot of sense. I didn't put much relevance in yesterday's injury report. Today I will, because if you get yesterday sort of off and you're still not back today, then you have an issue.
And we'll follow that injury report online. You can follow us on Twitter. We're the smart people on Twitter at Colts Blue Zone. We're not the ridiculous
A lot of idiots
people
out there, but not us.
Yeah, exactly. Follow us for sure. This game is a 1 o'clock kickoff inside Lucas Oil Stadium. You can watch it if you're in central Indiana on CBS4. The Titans are 1-point favorites themselves with the over-under set at 42.5. So we're expecting a 22-21 ball game right around that whereabouts from the fine people in Las Vegas between these two AFC South rivals. If it is that close, I would be very surprised. And yeah, so let's get into our predictions for this week, what we think is going to happen. I'll go first. Matt, you go second. Chap,
of course. I'm always in the caboose.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Don't worry. I'll get you in front in a little bit. But I just want to give us the opportunity to steal your final score.
I'm just glad I'm 100% healthy and ready to go. I'm excited for my first day of practice.
I love it. Fantastic. So
health.
Yes, I think the Colts still struggle a little bit with this Texans defensive line if they don't have Bernard Ryman in there, and this is a bit of it's still kind of a shell shock moment for Blake Freeland, and like I said, no disrespect to Blake, but he's not as far along as Bernard Ryman was last year. He was not expected of anything more than Bernard Ryman was, and it took Ryman a couple of games to get settled in last year. And so we should expect that Freeland, a guy that you want to be kind of your swing backup tackle, takes a little while to get set in there. And like the point that I made earlier, the Titans have a pretty good edge rush right now. They have and a very stout offensive front. And if Jonathan Taylor is just going to have a limited role, if you can't just rely on him weakening that front over and over again for 20, 25 touches, which I don't think you can right now, it just gives them more opportunities to hit Richardson and to soften up the Colts offensive front. I think the Titans get this. We'll keep it around the. We'll keep it around the what's it called? The over under here, right around 43. I think it's right around I think like a 27-16 ball game, because I think just the Colts are going to have some trouble moving the ball against this Titans defense. But yeah, 27-16 is my prediction. I think that just until the Colts are healthier on the offensive line, when they're playing tough defenses, they're going to struggle. And now the Titans get a little bit of early season momentum as they hope to build something here in the up for grabs AFC South. Matt, what do you think is going to happen? I
was originally going to say 17-9 going with the Titans. Then I was like, well, if the Colts do get down there in the red zone, I think Anthony Richardson might be good for at least one touchdown. So I'll go ahead and upgrade that score to 17-16. Give him a TD.
Nice tight game, chap.
I'll be the homer. I'll say 2017. And I'm one of those guys. I just have never bought into the Titans and Tannehill, and they've proven me wrong more than I've been right.
But dang it, I'm going to dig in.
This is a hill I'm going to die on.
He shouldn't be this good.
I think they'll make enough. Now, I wish Buckner was 100%. I think that'll make a difference. I think they find a way. I can't see a team losing 8 games in a row at home. It's hard to do. So let Matt Gay kick that game-winning field goal and they walk off, and Taylor can get his 25 yards on 4 carries.
There you go. And if he gets 25 yards on 4 carries, I think that's successful week one. I really do. Like, get him out there, like you tend to say, proof of life inside Lucas Oil Stadium, and let him do something. Do something. Do anything. Get used to it again. Take a few hits. Hold on to the football.
That's what I was going to say.
He had a couple fumble problems last year, didn't he?
Exactly. Yes, he did. There were a couple of them.
Washington and somewhere else.
Was it the? I don't need to get. I'm not going to think of it. So, yeah, you can follow all of us on Twitter. I am at DaveG_sports. Chap is at mchappell51. Also get his work online, fox59.com, cbs4indy.com, Matt Statomatti on Twitter. And be sure to follow, like I said, at Colts Blue Zone as well for news and notes, injury updates, and all that throughout the week as we lead up to the game. 1 o'clock kickoff Sunday if you're in Central Indiana, broadcast on CBS4, where you can also find our Blue Zone pregame show Sunday morning at 11:30. So we hope you've enjoyed this Jonathan Taylor heavy and a little bit with the Titans mixed in there. Colts Blue Zone podcast. We'll see you next week.